A very cheerful good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, respected keynote speaker, esteemed panelists, honorable faculty members, and my enthusiastic students present over here. To start off, I would like to borrow some lines beautifully quoted by Jack Ma. Never give up. Today is hard. Tomorrow is worse. But the day after tomorrow will be sunshine. With this, on behalf of the Indian Institute of Management, Amritsar, I, Aditya Sahu, along with Sudhir Kumar, welcome you all to the 7th edition of Sankshetra, the annual Operations and Strategy Conclave. Sankshetra aspires to establish an exclusive platform for industry veterans to take part in insightful conversations and share their expertise with emerging managers, delving into the latest trends and advancements within the realms of operations and strategy.
And with great pleasure and enthusiasm, we would like to introduce today's theme for the strategy and consulting panel, navigating economic downturns, industry challenges and strategies. And for that, we are pleased to welcome Ms. Riya Davi and Ms. Evika Jain from the Bachelor of New Zealand to present today's theme.
Greetings to everyone. Today, I, Evika Jain, along with my friend Riya Davi, are here to present on the topic Navigating the Economic Downturns, the Industry Challenges and Strategies. As it is said, the recession won't be over till we raise a generation that knows how to live on what they've got. An economic downturn, widely known as recession, is a significant decline in the economic activity spread across the market, lasting more than a few months. Normally visible in the GDP, income, employment rates, and wholesale retail sales of a country. Some of the historical examples of the economic downturns that shook the world were the Great Depression, which was a severe worldwide economic depression marked by high unemployment rates, bank failures, and a significant contraction of the industrial production. It lasted for 10 years from 1929 to 1939. The 2008 financial crisis was triggered by the collapse of housing market due to the distribution of uncontrolled subprime mortgage loans, leading to a global recession. The economic downturns triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 was an unprecedented event characterized by widespread lockdowns, disrupted supply chains, and a sharp decline in consumer spending, which shook businesses across the various sectors as they faced closures and reduced operations, leading to soaring unemployment rates. Some of the key indicators of economic downturns are GDP contractions, rising unemployment rates, reduced investments and funding in businesses, the geopolitical disturbances, and reduced consumer spending. Moving on to the financial strategies that some of the companies have adopted during an economic downturn, which resulted in them emerging bigger and better in the market are debt management. During the 2008 financial crisis, GE went into a huge debt as it primarily invested in the real estate and consumer credit sectors. But the way they raised a $15 billion capital in the market and worked with its lenders to restructure its debt, extending maturities and reducing interest rates set an example in the market. Effective cash flow management. During the 2008 recession, Netflix effectively managed its cash flow by launching the streaming services and by partnering with organizations like Xbox to increase memberships and subscriptions. Scenario planning. Lululemon used scenario planning to visualize different representations of their futures. Based on assumptions about the forces driving the market, scenario planning helps decision makers identify ranges of potential outcomes and impacts, evaluate responses, and manage both positive and negative possibilities. Capital expenditure review. According to the Wall Street Journal, Cisco is known for maintaining strong cash reserves Also, it has been relatively conservative with its capex. This approach provides the company with financial stability and flexibility, allowing it to weather the economic downturn successfully. Insurance and risk management. Shell, being a major player in the oil and gas industry, faces economic challenges during the periods of low oil prices. The company uses insurance and risk management strategies to mitigate the impact of price volatility. The diversification of revenue streams. Disney is a prime example of how a company can diversify its revenue streams during the economic downturns. When their theme parks around the world were forced to close due to the pandemic, Disney had just launched their Disney Plus streaming services. This diversification of revenue streams helped them weather the economic downturn due to pandemic successfully. Marketing and advertising is a crucial part of a business, and it becomes very important for businesses to adopt the appropriate marketing strategies to ensure that they come out stronger and better in the market even during the economic downturns. Some companies executed effective marketing strategies in the best way during these times by partnerships and collaboration. In 2018, Starbucks entered into a global coffee alliance with Nestle. This collaboration allowed Starbucks to expand its consumer reach by leveraging Nestle's distribution channel, while Nestle gained access to Starbucks' premium coffee brand. Customer-centric approach. IKEA sells ready-to-assemble furniture and home appliances. It tests for product attributes on its websites. They identify exactly what drives consumers' purchase behavior. And by adopting this customer-centric approach, IKEA built customer loyalty, which helped them navigate the economic downturns very smoothly. Digital marketing. McDonald's recognized the growing influence of social media and digital platforms during the recession. They leveraged the digital channels to engage with customers, promote new products, and create a sense of community around the brand. It implemented creative digital marketing campaigns to generate buzz and maintain a strong online presence. This strategy allowed them to reach a wider audience and build the brand loyalty. Innovative market positioning. During the economic downturns, Apple strategically positioned itself as a provider of premium, aspirational products that offered both style and substance. They emphasized on innovation and user experience and maintained focus on the product excellence, which enticed the customers. The company also implemented targeted marketing campaigns highlighting the long-term value of its products, fostering the customer loyalty. Usage of data analytics. Spotify is a prime example of how a company can use data to draw its customers in. Spotify gathers users' listening preferences in the form of data and target the audience with respect to their preferences. It also launched its Spotify Wrapped campaign that gives the users a summary of their past year's listening habits ready to share on social media. These little nudges can help to turn data analytics into an emotive story, helping build brand loyalty and generating good vibes, something Spotify has quite savvily used to their advantage. Now I would like to call Real to continue with the presentation.
Technology is a gift of mankind that can be used by businesses to streamline their functions in a much simpler and time-saving way. Some of the technologies that businesses can use during the economic downturns can be adoption of the ERP systems that integrate various business processes like finance, HR, supply chain, etc. to streamline the data flow, reduce the manual errors, and improve the overall efficiency. Companies can use IoT devices to gather the real-time data from equipment, products, and processes, which lead predictive maintenance, improved operational efficiency, and cost savings. Businesses can implement technology solutions to optimize the supply chain, improving inventory management and demand forecasting. By implementing robot process automation (RPA) to automate the routine and time-consuming tasks, businesses can free up employees for more strategic and value-added activities. Data analytic tools can be utilized to analyze the operational data and make the informed decisions. This helps identify the areas for improvement, optimize processes, and forecast the trends. AI algorithms can be implemented by businesses to automate the decision-making processes and enhance the customer interactions. Cloud computing is a very useful tool for businesses to streamline their operations in a better way, as it can heavily reduce the hardware costs, enhance scalability and improve the accessibility for remote teams, which can be really helpful for them in navigating the economic downturns. E-commerce and online platforms can enhance the sales by reaching a broader audience and reduce the cost associated with the traditional brick-and-mortar operations. A company's workforce is one of the majorly affected sectors during the economic downturns. To ensure smooth functioning of the employees and minimize the layoffs during these times, a right strategy should be used, which should be a combination of strategic planning, adaptability, and commitment to ethical considerations. Companies can access skills of their employees and explore opportunities to redeploy them to areas where their skills are much needed. Companies should maintain transparent communication about the financial health of the organizations and steps taken to navigate the economic downturn. They should encourage an open dialogue between the management and the employees to address the concerns and gather the input on potential solutions. Businesses should invest in cross-training employees. They should provide opportunities for skill development to enhance employees' versatility. Various government programs provide financial assistance to businesses facing economic challenges. Businesses can leverage them and should also ensure compliance with labor laws and regulations while implementing cost-saving measures. Some of the techniques that businesses can use to streamline their operations and supply chain in an efficient manner during the economic downturns include digital twinning, which is the method and technology that creates a virtual model of a physical system that is updated in real time. For example, a wind turbine can be virtually modeled to optimize energy outputs and performance. Similarly, a digital twin of a wind farm can help predict future energy generation. Modern techniques such as economic order quantity (EOQ) and just-in-time (JIT) inventory management can help manage resources more effectively. EOQ ensures we have just enough inventory to meet the demand, and JIT aims to reduce the waste by reducing the goods only as when they are needed. By forecasting and assessing risks, we can form strategic partnerships that help us anticipate and address potential challenges. A good example is the partnership between Apple and Foxconn, which allows Apple to leverage Foxconn's manufacturing and supply chain expertise. Diversifying the supplier base can lead to cost savings, improve quality and quantity, and reduce dependence on one supplier. It also encourages innovative solutions and enhance the customer experience. Companies can diversify their supplier base, often enjoy stronger business outcomes. Till now, we have seen some of the key strategies that can be adopted by businesses by navigating economic downturns. But there was one company which chooses the opposite path than the usual ones and still managed to emerge as a leader in the industry, and that company is P&G. It proved to the world that sometimes going the other way can also be beneficial for the companies and business. So the businesses should opt for the strategy that best suits them. So what P&G did was, rather than going for the business contraction during these times, it went for the global expansion. It leveraged its global presence to enter into new and emerging markets. In 2013, P&G expanded its global scope to focus on the emerging economies, including Brazil, China, South Africa, Mexico, and Nigeria, Poland. Despite the economic downturn, P&G continued to invest in brand marketing and advertising to maintain customer loyalty and demand. The company utilized various promotional channels and tactics to engage with customers. P&G has been working on optimizing the supply chain to improve its capacity, agility, cost efficiency, and resilience. For instance, P&G is working on its Supply Chain 3.0 initiative, which aims to enhance automation and digital capabilities. To maintain profitability during economic downturns, P&G implemented several cost-cutting measures. In 2015, P&G reduced the number of partners it works with from 6,000 to 2,500, which reportedly helped it save $750 million in agency and production costs. In conclusion, economic downturns are inevitable, but with right strategies, industries can not only survive but also thrive thrive during these challenging times. The ability to adapt to changing market conditions is crucial. This includes exploring new markets, diversifying the product lines, and leveraging technology. Economic downturns can be a catalyst for innovation. Companies that invest in research and development during these times are often the ones that comes out stronger. Collaboration within the industry and with external partners can help share risk and pool the resources. While the current economic conditions may be challenging, they also present opportunities for growth and innovation. By staying resilient, adaptable, and innovative, industries can navigate economic downturns successfully. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Veer and Avika. Your presentation was informative and thought-provoking. As we gather here today, let me commence with words that echo the spirit of unity and leadership. Let your deeds illuminate the path, not the glow, of your own ambition. Lead by inspiration and elevation. For the truest measure of leadership lies not in your own asset, but in the lives you live and the legacies you leave. With that being said, allow me to introduce to the keynote speaker, Mr. Himanshu Saxena, for today's discussion. Mr. Himanshu Saxena is the Chief Operating Officer and Managing Director at Patil Borg Hagati, India, a global creative communication company. With nearly 3 decades of experience, he was a versatile background in sales and marketing, advertising, digital and social marketing, PR, design, market research, and brand management. His leadership spanned country-specific and multi-office role, contributing to the success of brands like Unilever, GSK, PepsiCo, and others. Recognized and prestigious forums like KSNFE, he has served as a jury member at various award platforms. Before BBS, he had leadership positions at Reliance Jio, Lorendas, McCann World Group, JWT, and Edelman and Kendall International. His dynamic career showcases a consistent record of success and innovation in the marketing and communication industry. With that being said, we would like to heartily invite Mr. Himanshu Saxena on stage. Please join us on stage. We would like to request Sopandeep sir to come on stage and Mr. Thank you very much, sir. So, it is with the utmost reverence that we humbly request Mr. Saxena to deliver your keynote address. Over to you, sir.
After some, I'm sure that those of Shole Kulche and everything else, obviously I and all my fellow panelists have a tough job to keep this room alive. Hopefully we should be able to manage that. I was just talking to one of my fellow panelists right now. I've been looking at the history of depressions after lunch. I think this is becoming even more challenging to have a discussion right now. But what I would try and do in the next roughly about 10 minutes or so is that share my sort of understanding, limited one, to sort of give you some pointers, which perhaps are not that top of mind for a lot of us. And maybe that also becomes a bit of a, let's say, a backgrounder for the rest of the panel discussion, hopefully. Right? And of course, we have a very, very luminary panel here and with very diverse set of skills and experiences. So I'm sure that will make a lot of sense to all of you. Any place you want to stop me and shut me down, go ahead, I'll take it on. So feel free to raise your hand and stop me if you want to ask anything. But let me just start first with common sense on this issue. Because usually in times of crisis, that's what escapes most people, right? We tend to get very reactionary about certain things. What I'm talking about is fundamentally three things, which perhaps are worth considering when you are sort of in the wake of some sort of challenge of any kind of crisis which is hurting businesses or economies in a very deep way. First is the point I make about cause and effect. Very often, we do get caught up into the effects of such phenomena and tend to lose our sight on what's actually causing it. It's easier said than done, I agree, but it is something which is very, very important and I think we are that rare breed, all of us in fact, which perhaps has seen more number of externally forced crises in our businesses and economies in the last 20-30 years since all of us have been working, more than any other previous recession, because other than the other two world wars and the Great Recession, which was, I think, beyond the age of this room, I don't think our erstwhile managers had this level of volatility in the environment. I mean, right from our own Indian wars to a lot of internal conflicts, but globally as well. We saw 2008. We've heard of course, pandemic. We are now going through Ukraine war, and so many others, which have actually impacted us. Of course, part of the reason also is that over the years, most markets and economies have become far more connected and interdependent. So, if somebody sneezes in Poland, it matters to us more and more now, right? But having said that, I think there are still some interesting pointers to look at when you look at this. Just picture this for a minute. Demonetization, a policy decision which remains contentious till date, but from the business context, on November 8th, 2016, on the very famous my own birthday date, when I came back home to party, I saw the Prime Minister on the screen, and after that party was over. Not because I had a lot of stacks of cash to manage, the first thing I did was a dash to the ATM and survived with that for the first 15 days. But the point is that it actually wiped out 95% of the cash economy, and I think one of the fundamental points which perhaps got misunderstood at the time and now better understood is that everything which is cash doesn't necessarily mean illegal, right? So there's a very large segment of people in our country who depend on a daily basis with cash transactions, and they're legit. Just because they don't have bank accounts or they're not in so-called digitized money doesn't mean they are illegitimate. So that obviously wiped out a large lot, but all the digital wallet players or payment portals, obviously who pre-existed, many of them pre-existed, including the one I'm referring to here, which is Paytm, obviously did some smart things. I mean, they existed. In fact, I was in one of the agencies where they were our clients as well, and they were doing okay. They were sort of scrambling along, and one of the big challenges of that ecosystem, as you might know, is how do you build a payment receiving network before you actually ask people to pay, and somewhere there is a yin and yang in between the two. So they were just struggling with that thing, and where came this? There were various other payment systems which actually failed, despite this opportunity, because they just couldn't recognize the moment India was going to go through, or some found it too tough to manage in terms of the scale at which we might have to scale up. But Paytm was one of the companies which actually rose up to that. In fact, they did some very, very simple things to sort of turn the ball around, and the results which happened in less than a year's time made them a very, very formidable sort of player. And as a result of that, I mean, today undeniably, of course now, within a very short span of another about 5-7 years, there are equally strong competitive brands which have emerged. But Paytm, from a slightly struggling sort of a brand in terms of figuring out the large scaling up, saw a certain fundamental cause rather than just worrying about the absence of cash as a huge opportunity and build on that. Right? So this is a positive story. I mean, not every crisis is a negative story for businesses. In fact, on the contrary, there are more cases of super successes out of crisis. Sorry, this is moving. So like I said, while this was an exception of success, which happened in this category at least, because they were at the right place at the right time, and they put their might and effort in the right direction. I'm on the right side of the business. There are also various other examples outside of this, which are not directly interlinked in the world of currencies and payments. Hindustan Unilever, I mean, one of our fellow panelists has spent considerable years there, right? The kind of innovations they took after the initial assessment of few months, and the kind of throughput they did in terms of supply chains, completely looking at their retailer network in a very different way, converting a lot of sort of regular kirana stores, mom and pop stores, trying to help them digitize, come on quick commerce. A lot of those efforts were made to sustain the business. Asian Paints, again, often quoted example of how robust is their business model and supply chain system, which despite all kinds of things, and literally, I mean, who would imagine allowing a painter walking into their house during COVID, right? It was really impossible. But many of these brands, of course, this was a tactical move just to ensure that they sustain. I mean, it was surprising to see that Asian Paints had a sanitizer at that time. Interestingly, very alcohol beverage brands at that time. Makes sense, just to stay afloat. But those are tactical short-term strategies. Eventually, brands like Asian Paints and Titan even, because retail was literally shut, there were no marriages happening for anything else to be bought. They all found very interesting means to achieve long-lasting sort of success, digging out of that scenario. Therefore, fundamentally, the first point I'm making is that start focusing from effects to causes. In some of the famous crises of the last decade or two, when the US, the 2008-9 thing happened, where the bank collapse led to credit crunch, the cause was actually the housing bubble, which was obviously bubbling for a fairly long time. And there are companies who failed miserably, and there are companies who came out of that. During COVID-19, which became the cause, the effects were actually unemployment, mass reverse migration, etc. There are companies who sort of converted that opportunity. So, big point, summary, focus on effects, not just, focus on causes, not just effects. I'm sorry. And fundamentally, the story, I did the point, like Einstein said, the significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. And therefore, to continue to hold on to what was making you run, despite the environment of a crisis or a downturn, obviously it's not going to work, so you have to be very, very agile and relook at, what sort of changes you want to make. Because fundamentally, it is about root cause understanding, not just focusing on the effects and trying to contain that. So that's point one. Second point comes from the fact that navigating immediate impacts of downturn is important, like I just underlined, but finding choices within that which can sustain you for longer time is equally important. There were a lot of companies who tried, almost trying to stay afloat by doing a lot of random things, and I'm referring to the most recent phenomenon around COVID-19, wherein they took a lot of short-term steps, but they did not do them in a manner that they were scalable or they were possible to be sort of converted into long-term business platforms. Just a number to wake you up to this afternoon and the kind of loss in this context that happened, right? 52 lakh crore is the estimated loss of business that happened in Rupee Valley. This is the CMI and RBI data, right, which led to 122 million people losing jobs and nearly 50% revenue drop in service sector alone. There are economies this size in the world. That is the kind of loss India faced, right? But despite that, a lot of companies went ahead and took interventions in specific areas, right? They started sort of looking at different effects and trying different things. Some succeeded, some did. Like when there was a decrease in demand, people started diversifying their product portfolios, like I talked about, companies getting into sanitation and hygiene. Some other companies went further up into actually getting into COVID medication, all the associated treatment lines. They started reprioritizing their portfolios, they started rationalizing their marketing spends, of course, thinking that not spending money on marketing is going to actually help them. And in most cases, in my experience, it actually didn't. It actually made it tougher later on. Supply chain issue. I mean, one has seen what is going on recently in the context of Ukraine war, right? I mean, it is obviously, as you all well know, it is a grand opportunity for the +1 supply chain strategy for India against China and the region at least. But until somebody actually figures out that what aspect or which specific sectors or which areas to focus on, just by trying to compete, I don't know if you've heard Dr. Raghunathan recently, he published a nice book in which he actually talks about that as a country right now, which is perhaps the largest organization, part of, right, it needs to focus on not just replicating what happened in China over the last 25 years by blindly just chasing that we will also become a manufacturing giant. India, given its natural strength, we need to focus and make use of this opportunity or this so-called crisis in supply chain and larger economic opportunities by focusing on building IPs, focusing on building intellectual properties and platforms and technologies which can be marketed globally. I mean, look at it this way. Last 30 years, what is the Indian product which has gone global? Really nothing. Except for services sector, which also has certain areas. So yes, it's a viable business, very, very large business, but if you really look at success of a lot of brands, a lot of country brands which have done well in the economy worldwide, take Germany, take Japan, take China itself, they have sold products globally, they have built products that have sold globally. So India going forward needs to make use of this crisis by also focusing on that. But that's India as a country. But if you narrow it down to a company or a corporation, right, product diversification, finding local chains, finding alternate sources, etc., are the difficult. So this is just a list of various things, and also this slide must tell you also the fact that classically, we associate some external factors sometimes, which cause such crises. There are some interesting ones which we tend to they creep in decades ago, and we don't even realize it. For example, technology obsolescence. The most famous case in this, I'm sure your management books have told you about Kodak as a brand, right? We have seen watches as a category struggle. There are so many other categories where the technology obsolescence makes for a massive downturn in the end. But none of this is something you can't forecast. None of this is something you can't see it coming. But unfortunately, people do, and they take a lot of reactionary innovative measures. They take some incentivization, etc., for people to buy. They start cross-promoting brands with other existing categories. But in the end, it is moving towards obsolescence, and you don't do anything much. It has issues. There are forced consolidation. One of our fellow panelists has black belt in that, where he helps consolidate companies in his company's favor, right? But many of those companies find a strategic advantage in doing that. Some are forced to, because they're just not viable, right? Downsizing staff is another way which comes as a result of many of these. So anyway, without getting into too many details of each of these, the larger point I'm making here is one, that the causes of crisis may not necessarily be something which happens suddenly all the time. They actually start creeping in way ahead of time, way ahead of time. Even smarter organizations which exist today, which have come into the direct line of fire, things like Ukraine war, for example, right now. It didn't happen the night the first attack happened on this war, right? This was brimming for a while, right? So smart organizations start taking actions ahead of time rather than just worrying about it, and we just must be cognizant that sometimes it is way beyond the obvious causes. So you must look beyond and read them early. And just a quick, and therefore the ones who make early observations and smarter moves while they're in the crisis. This is the data from US Bureau of Labor around COVID-19. I mean, this whole famous K-shaped recovery which a lot of economists claim. Truly speaking, in case of US, it did happen, but it happened only for technology, or sectors like technology, retail and software, didn't happen for travel, entertainment, hospitality and food services. Now obviously there's something to be learned here, that why is it the market cap of McDonald's in USA right now what it is, Burger King, it is what it is, than what it was 4 years ago, 5 years ago, right? While it is equally true for a lot of other tech companies and retail and software companies where they have found the right sort of measures to leverage it. Some quick examples out of India as well within that. I won't take too much time going through each one of them, but largely if you look at some Indian and global examples here. In Fab India, for example, the first 3 examples are in and around COVID. When Fab India, because of retail shutdown, etc., did something, and for them, the kind of business model, if you're familiar with them, is that all their artisans, all their manufacturing happens through a lot of regional sort of labor force, which is sitting with them in their workforce, in their workshops. They all migrated back to their hometowns. So they actually went out and they expanded. So for example, the Organic India Foods entire innovation which they did was during COVID, because they realized all these people have gone back, they need to be kept alive and employed, and they actually found opportunity in creating a new brand at that time, and it led to fantastic growth for them. Brompton, if you're familiar, the very famous UK-based bicycle brand, right? They actually started finding opportunities with enabling the NHS workers, right, to be enabled to their products, and found a very new line of business to sort of build out their business. Barbie, I think Barbie and Blinkit are the two interesting ones. I'm sure you all seen Barbie? Okay. So, I know a lot of people very particularly hated it, so anyways. But as you know, Barbie is a franchise, just a franchise was struggling for very good reasons actually, right? They actually, it was a self-induced crisis in some ways. There were large social-economic changes happening, which can also cause economic downturns for organizations, right? They actually looked at it very differently, and they made use of this sort of content creation strategy to revive their brand entirely. And look at the numbers important there. The total business generated by Mattel, which is the parent company where this brand comes from, actually came in at 43.3 million, and Barbie as a franchise role was 340 million post this one intervention. That's all it takes, right? Blinkit, Zomato story, I'm sure you noticed that. They forgot that during COVID-19, home deliveries for everyday morning essentials was super important, right? They bought out that company, Blinkit was struggling, and the rest is clear, So these are the kind of things that happen, is to find, in a scenario of crisis, winners, losers, failures, people who bounce out, right, or bounce in, whichever way they go, right? And therefore, it is important that we must understand that only people who stop worrying about kal kaise dekha hai, and they're not worried about it, but get into the root cause of what is happening, what steps to take immediately, right? But in a manner that it will use the same long-term advantage, right? So for these companies, the whole idea of kal kaise dekha hai is actually obsolete. They don't believe in that sort of working mechanism. And the last point then, related to the second point, is companies that build long-term resilience despite the crisis, of course going through the cause, finding out the right strategies, short, mid-term and long-term strategies, but it must eventually build long-term resilience. And when I say this, I'm making a specific point that this is not something which is unique to large legacy companies, people, brands which have existed for hundreds of years or decades. It could actually well apply to slightly younger or even startup companies. As long as they have a slightly long-term view of what they're trying to do, this would help. So, in my sort of little assessment, there are two kinds of companies, and not necessarily restricted to the choice I have put up on as example on top, but there are companies that are too big to fail, because they will actually literally crash the economy in some cases, and we have seen that happen where actually governments have stepped in to bail out private organizations. And there are companies who fail due to their size. Just as a small aside, I'm currently reading an interesting book. I encourage all of you to. It's called Small Giants. It's a book by a gentleman called who talks about companies who choose to be great rather than big. There's merit in that philosophy. It's an alternate point of view. Nothing is wrong or right in this. But you know, if you look at it, there are companies who become victims of their scale and size. So when you are hit, these kind of companies, the other side of the companies are hit by certain kind of crisis, they need to make certain choices. Look at IBM, for example. If you go back and look at the history of IBM, every 10 years they pretty much reinvent their business model. Pretty much. I know there are more fans of Apple than IBM in this world right now, but as a brand, but purely IBM, which is for a very long time now, is a pure enterprise solution focused brand. They continuously keep evolving ahead of time. In fact, sometimes they look silly going in certain directions. But they keep going ahead of time, and every 10 years, look at their year-on-year quarterly growth over last, for example, 12, 13 years. This is what adaptability, innovation, foresight, and certain customer centricity amongst all of this is helpful. And same goes for brands like Asian Paints, Unilever, where there are million instances where they've achieved that across many of their brands and businesses. And therefore, the goal of dealing with this, while dealing with this, should not be restricted to a long or a short-term survival. Like when I saw a lot of these alcohol companies making sanitizers, honestly, it seems so opportunistic. In fact, there were some nutrition brands who suddenly started reminding consumers, listen, we have vitamin C in our product. Because, so consumers see through these things, you know, and it doesn't create lasting value. It might give you some small flip here and there, and none of this will get you out of the crisis in any case. So one should stay away from that. One should look at, continue to be focused on taking steps which are more stable, more sort of sustained, and most importantly, above all of what I've said today, build the foresight, understand your category cycles, look into the few decades of what's happening. I mean, airline industry is another one we were talking. Every 7 to 8 years, globally, they go through complete crash. When they are in their up, every single aviation company, airline company is ordering 30, 40, 100 Boeings and whatever. By the time they are beginning to deliver, the downtrend has begun. So they actually never produce what is the orders actually. That's how very simply they manage it. Because they know nearly about 40 to 50% will actually not be paid for. Right? But beyond that, they of course manage various other things. So understand the cycles of the industry or the category you're in at a macro level over decades, not last few years, over decades. And you will find there's a pattern. There's always a pattern in the economic cycles. So that's my summary of the 3 big points. Focus on causes, cause and effect, navigate the immediate impacts but with things that are sustainable, and finally, always build long-term resilience. Keep a foresight on your category and industry cycles, which is what will sort of see you through. In the following conversation, there will be obviously some very exciting chat going ahead, so I will sort of allow this conversation to go on and continue with some chat here. So thank you so much. I hope it will be good.
We extend our heartfelt gratitude to you, sir, for sharing an enlightening and profound insights. Your presence at this event is truly cherished. Thank you. It is now our pleasure to introduce the panel for today's conclave, starting with Mr. Mutar Basha. The Chief Operating Officer at Indo National Limited brings over 30 years of versatile experience in sales, marketing, operations, and general management across diverse consumer categories. A growth and turnaround specialist, Sir has a successful track record with large MNCs, startups, and mid-sized companies in India, South Asia, and Southeast Asia. Currently leading the transformation of the 50-year-old Nippo brand, he aims for holistic growth in both mid-term and long-term perspectives. A mathematics graduate from the University of Madras, he furthered his education with a general management course sponsored by Unilever and an executive program on strategy at Wharton Business School, showcasing his commitment to lifelong learning. With a background in the food industry, Mr. Pasha led profitable revenue growth for Del Monte and McCormick, contributed to the success of MNCs like Britannia and Prabha Dairy, and played a pivotal role in the founding team of a Goldman Sachs-backed startup. His 2-decade tenure at Hindustan Unilever Limited involved spearheading tech-driven projects, earning recognition with the Chairman's Award and executing impactful category development initiatives across diverse geographies.
The next member of our panel, Mr. Harish Wadhwani, the General Manager at Varuna Group, brings a distinguished career with notable contribution, especially in his commendable service to the Indian Air Force. Recognized with prestigious medal for his role during the Kargil insurgency. Mr. Wadhwani leads the process control department for fleet operation at Varuna Logistics. With 25 years of expertise in operations, strategy, and fleet management, he oversees a fleet of 2,000 plus container trucks, ensuring seamless logistics operation for Varuna. Beyond his military service, he served as the state fleet head for more than 4,000 government MLS in Uttar Pradesh, showcasing his leadership in public service. An alumnus of prestigious institution and certified by PMI US and Kellogg Northwestern, Mr. Wadhwani holds a diverse qualification, including an MPhil in Public Administration and MBA in HR and a PhD in Financial Management. His diverse skill set, leadership acumen, and commitment to excellence make him a valuable asset to Varuna Group, contributing significantly to the success and efficiency of its operation.
Next on the list we have Mr. Amit Tekar, Chief Strategy Officer at DBWA India, is a 27 years of advertising veteran specializing in strategy and planning. His journey spans from early roles in business management to strategic leadership in renowned agencies like J. Walter Thompson and Ogilvy and Mather across India, Southeast Asia and Australia. Sir plays a pivotal role in global brand building and corporate strategy at DBWA while also championing diversity, equity and inclusion initiatives as a member of Omnicom Group's Global DE&I Steering Committee. Holding degrees in microbiology and advertising public relations management, Mr. Kekar's commitment to learning is evident through formal education in gender studies and completion of leadership programs at Omnicom University. His multifaceted expertise and advocacy for DE&I make him a valuable asset to DBWA India. Up next, we have Mr. Amit Deveri, Head of Strategy, Business Development and Investor Relations at Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail, is a key architect of the company's growth and transformation agenda. An ISB alumnus with extensive experience, he excels in strategy, partnerships, new ventures, and investments. His leadership is marked by successful execution of transformative initiatives, including mergers and acquisitions and strategic partnerships. Beyond strategy, he manages external investor relations and capital raise initiatives. With an ownership mindset, Sir navigates complexities, thrives in uncertainties, and builds influential relationships across industries, emphasizing his commitment to positive outcomes. A dynamic leader, he drives Aditya Birla's fashion and retail success through expertise, relationships, and technical spirit, ensuring sustained growth in our dynamic business landscape.
Up next, we have Mr. Anshuman Srivastava, Group Chief Commercial at Exide Industries Limited. With over 2 decades of versatile leadership across diverse industries, Sir is a distinguished figure among the country's top Chief Commercial Officers. Renowned for his strategic ability and operational transformation, he navigates strategic sourcing, supply chain management, and digital transformation across 11 plants, cultivating high-performing team for operational excellence. Mr. Srivastava's influence extends globally, having accelerated strategy procurement expansion for the Vedanta Group in industries, ranging from mining and oil and gas to zinc, lead to silver, aluminium, power plant, FMCG, and flexible packaging. His acknowledgement includes the 2022 CPO of the Year, Top 10 CCO recognition in 2021, Commercial Excellence Award 2019, Future Leader Award, and various internal honors for outstanding performance. During his tenure at Hindustan Zinc Limited, he demonstrated sustainable cost leadership and innovative strategy as Chief Commercial and Procurement Officer, focusing on compliance, recovery effort, and building organizational flexibility in the dynamic market.
Now, I would like to take the opportunity to invite all the panelists on stage. Please, sir. Once again, I would like to call Sopandeep sir on stage to felicitate our esteemed panelists with a token of appreciation. Thank you, Sopandeep sir. We would like to take forward the course of today's conclave by inviting the panelists and the keynote speaker for discussion. I would request Mr. Mutar Basha to take the lead of the conclave and commence today's discussion.
Good afternoon. I am very glad to be part of this seminar, and especially among young minds, the budding panelists. I want to thanks for opening up very interesting slides, more covering what exactly good companies will do, do's and don'ts. And also I'm very happy to see my first company that I spent 2 decades there being featured in your slides. They're very happy. I completely after my career, I'm more of a consumer guy. So in HUL partners, we always talk what's important for a consumer guy or any person who deals consumer product is like roti, kapda, makan, FMCG, that kind of order. So when that line comes, for us, every household in India is important. So 130 crores divided by 5, the 26 crore household. Whether I'm selling a 10 rupees biscuit or a 20 rupees battery. This, whenever we see up and downs, the big impact happens here. Because we are answerable for, the entire country in some form, depends on your market shares. So I give a couple of examples what I think he has given, Himanshu has given. In recent time, take COVID is a big, it has impacted everyone globally, settled in India. India has two parts of the story, especially when you are in consumer product. Especially in foods, when pandemic happened, lockdown, out of home consumption came to zero. Quality ice, you see Domino's or all food brands respectively. And even for regular household consumer goods, modern retail is shut. I think large cities, significance of business come from modern retail, and because of the restrictions, especially those large stores or part of the malls got stuck. And the good examples, I think a lot of people did some short term like what Himanshu was telling. Here I also have a hand sanitizer, why can't you buy? Companies did very good smart things. I can give a couple of examples. I was part of a company called Del Monte. We make high-end sauces and olive oil. The company accelerated e-commerce for it. I think amazing. We realized that's the best route to go. And e-commerce and Q-commerce was happening. The Blinkit of the world, Swiggy of the world. The entire team, right from supply chain, to the front-end marketing, geared up on this transition. I was amazed. I think in terms of people discussion comes up about how quickly people learn. I've seen many of my team members who never did e-commerce geared up for the equation. So that's a very interesting how companies have to gear up, whether you're small or big, when this kind of content, because important is to stay in the business or do well. And Conclave, a battery company, during COVID I was not there. Suddenly it's very funny that industry, battery is not high intelligence, I'm sure very few people have seen in advertisement of Nipo or maybe everybody or Duracell somewhere. The demand for batteries, AAA batteries have gone up during COVID too because of oximeter. I'm sure many of us would have experienced. And that was unprecedented. They never expected that kind of demand. And people went. It's more than making money. I've seen big brands, including my own, our own Nipo. They went, they worked overnight and catered to their stuff. So what the story tells, the very bottom line, we should be agile. Everyone should be agile. Should know quickly what we can do, where we can leverage our strengths, and work as a team across functions. So these are the two examples I can tell. I'm sure I'll ask other panelists to give some basically your views and opinions on the topics which I should cover around these downturns and opportunities that
Sure. Hi. Hello. I think enough has been said about the topic, and I think I'm going to take a lead from what Evika and Riel sort of left us with in their really exciting presentation. And of those 5 or 6 points that the presentation kind of summed up, which is attributes or qualities that kind of keep you, help you overcome a crisis, I think if I remember well, and I took note of them, resilience and adaptability and innovation and future focus and collaboration. In my mind and in my experience, I think that coming off, as recent as all of us have, of the COVID-19 pandemic and recession, the most important quality of this is collaboration. And the way, I think even over and above collaboration, what sits is a sense of humanity. And that kind of leads you to togetherness, to collaboration, to seeking new people, new opportunities, new partnerships. Because it is in times of crisis that if you innovatively look at the people that you're working with, the suppliers that work with you, the organizations that you perhaps compete with, and foster new partnerships, foster new collaborations, that in my mind is a great way to sort of overcome crisis. And other than that, I think what I'd like to add is, and I come from more of brand building sort of perspective compared to a lot of other people on the panel who perhaps have a more business focused view and who are connected, of course. But from a brand building perspective, I think one would say that it's very tempting to dial down on building a brand when it's times of crisis. But I think, especially when the world is not right, when the times are not right, it's very, very important, perhaps even more important, to invest in building your brand. Because brands have a relationship with your audiences, with your people, and in times of crisis, people actually look forward to a holding hand, to what brands and businesses can do for them. I think there's enough that's been written about how P&G, during the times of the pandemic crisis, decided to actually, much you spoke about it as well, that while they went about investing in business and growing the business itself in different parts of the world, but they invested disproportionately in times of the COVID-19 pandemic, which showed how in their books, in bottom line, when they evaluated it post the pandemic, and as against P&G, a brand like Coke, which said that, oh, nobody's buying us, so why should we actually invest in building brand, suffered suffered the exact opposite consequence. So one of my lessons from not just this crisis, but a lot of other crises that people of my generation have seen is that when times are not right, you've got to double down on being present, on being there, on being relevant, and not pull yourself back as a business and as a brand. Yeah, that's what I think I'd like to add.
Hi, Harish here. So, at time of distress, if certain line of business is not working, then another line of business must be working. So, we must strengthen that. For example, during that COVID time, some line of business were not working at all, but pharma and FMCG brands were very well working. So, we need to think with an eagle eye that which line of business is giving us more revenue right now. So we can drift our business toward that. So what is important is someone must be there who is looking from the top. What is working right now? Because what I see in organization, we are so much preoccupied with our jobs that we are not able to see that X LP is working, why LP is not giving that return or those margins. During crafting of your business, so some of you must be working on some startup within a year or two. So whenever you are crafting your business must be so much modular that you can at any time scrap some part of it, which line of business is not working. So those processes interlinking between your first line of business to the second line of business must be so much strong and must be crafted in a fashion, in a system that at any point of time you can deal with that. Right.
Hi, my name is Sankshetra. Now I completely agree to my fellow friends sitting out here, but slightly I like to deviate. Now we are talking about meetings. Downturn, agreed. COVID was a pandemic which was never ever thought about. No predictive modules were able to predict. None of the companies were able to predict. None of business houses, whether it be pharma, any company, none of the doctors, any economy were able to predict. But if you see instances wherein, as few of my members just mentioned, few companies took it as an opportunity. Now let me give you an example. We are talking about bits. Let me give you I'll use our basic examples, which probably have not met the right, but they actually turned around the company. Now what happened was during COVID, because at that time I was heading some other organization, I was the chief commercial officer of Hindustan Zinc Limited. That's a blue chip company and the government invested and obviously it has a safe reserves and everything to it. During that time when there was complete movement restrictions and employees or you can say people were not allowed to go out, now that operation was to get halted. Not possible because if you see at an image in a mining industry, until unless you don't employ your workforce out there, industry is going to shut. On top of it, during COVID, we wanted key elements like zinc. You might recall in all medicines, zinc was the most critical one. Now how do you go about it? Zinc is the only, Hindustan Zinc is a monopoly business I will. That's only producer in the country. You cannot do the mining. You cannot allow manpower to go out because COVID is spreading very fastly. Administration is against everything. So there came the new opportunity. Company ideally, if that was because I don't know whether most of you might have seen recent movies of Akshay Kumar coming into some mining related. Yeah, Mission Rani. Just imagine, in COVID time, can employees go and mine? From where will you get the zinc? So company took found out an opportunity out of it. Opportunity in the sense, not on a sales front, but they worked on multiple facets, multiple strategies. What we worked upon was firstly how to sustain the business. Now sustenance itself was a big challenge because restrictions and multiple things are there. So we carried out multiple, you can say, steps. We took out multiple steps to ensure proper safety of employee first thing. But still then they realized, no matter how much safety you take, you can't take more safety than government also. Still, it has to spread. You cannot stop it. And it's a completely manual driven business. So then companies started rethinking their strategies. And the strategies which we came was something like concepts like telecomming. I don't know, a lot of you might have heard about telecomming. Sitting out upstream on the surface where your mines are more than a kilometer down below, where hardly you can breathe. Forget about walking, you can't even breathe out there. External air has to be pushed down to just make you breathe, and you can hardly stand there for an hour. So company took it and okay, let's explore technology. Can we work on something on the technology front? So they took certain steps and developed the technologies. And based on that, sitting on surface, carrying out mining underground, that was a game changer. Now globally, none of the countries in mining sector were so working on that concept. So collaborated with external agencies, external countries, other countries like Australia and other ones, entered into strategies, developed the technologies, and then we worked upon it and ensured productivity was not down. Productivity was on the contrary increasing drastically. Intakes were, or rather outtakes were coming out. Proper safeties were. So what happened was they actually thought differently. Not under league one. A layman example again, I'll give you another example. You might have heard recent conflict with Israel. Dome structure failing. What exactly is the dome structure? Based on missile tracking and those things. You won't believe companies were working on that model. Companies said if Israel can make that model, can we do it in underground mining so that people do not get trapped? Materials when they fall, if you have seen mission running and material fell, and all the people were trapped out there. Now how do we do it? You might have seen the recent and that Uttarakhand case. How do we do it? So that's what the thought process is. Generally that dome structure is for the defense purpose. But they said, can we think something different? Can we think differently? Can we work differently? Because working on surface, employing multiple strategies is different. But working underground, I remember my days from going from surface to underground in my car, not normal car, that's a 4-wheel drive car. It takes 1.5 hours to reach down below. And 1.5 hours to reach. So this is what I see. COVID, now coming back to the point, COVID made us think that what is norm cannot be accepted. You have to work differently, you have to think differently. What is being sold out cannot be sustained for a long. You have to work something different. Here comes the role of strategies. I consider it, yes, there was a downturn, still there is, you can say market is not good, but there are ample opportunities. You can work on those ones and this can, whether it be on supply chain, whether it can be anything. So that's my few take. Maybe if my panel friends can maybe argue of saying that no, actually it can be on a digital sense, open to it. Yes, sir. I mean,
I think everything has been covered broadly. So
So what I do is I just take a step back. In 2020 when COVID happened, Nassim Nicholas Taleb said that we have a habit of looking at growth from a reported growth perspective. We also have to take into account all these events that keep happening. And as Himanshu had shared in his presentation, in a connected world, these kind of events will keep happening. And no company is going to operate only for 10 years. Let's say if you have a span of 40, 50 years, you are bound to see 3, 4 of such events. So all your growth has to be seen in light of how well you're able to recoup some of the lost growth during such times. The capabilities around agility, resilience, all that come into picture. But as part of strategy, you should, whenever you take a view on next 10 years, you should also take into account some of such black swan, white swan, whatever you want to call it, events, and make it as part of your strategic planning. These are also times when the markets get polarized from a competition perspective, as some of the panel members mentioned. People who are companies that are strong are able to gain market share, become much stronger because they take advantage of the weakness of the other lot. So whenever we plan for whenever we do a strategic planning exercise, which is a 5 or 10 year kind of game, we should always have a very sharp focus on strengthening the balance sheet as we move forward, because there is always this conflict between a CEO and CFO that keeps happening. The CFO always asks the CEO to take a more conservative view, try to be more protectionist, try to be somebody who focuses on building strength, while the CEO would want to chase growth in every direction, right? If there is a balance that will be struck between the two, also taking a view of some of such events happening for sure in the next 10 years, then it will just keep the planning more balanced. And if let's say something like this happens, it's a great opportunity for leaders to gain market share. And all the examples that Himanshu you gave were all big companies that were taking advantage of this opportunity, while the smaller ones either folded up or they got subsumed into the larger companies. I mean, some such acquisitions we also did, although we would say that we were the strongest one from a balance sheet perspective. But given that the market is such that you have multiple players, but still polarized in the sense that you have 2, 3 large players and the rest of the brands are all smaller brands, it's a great opportunity for the larger guys to acquire some of these brands and gain scale. I think one aspect which we should discuss more as a panel is also about how to deal with people. So the whole culture part also becomes supremely important if you're expecting something like this to happen. Culture doesn't get changed overnight. It doesn't happen just when the crisis has struck you. It's something that you keep investing in for a long period of time, almost assuming that one such event will take place where the companies and where the people are holding together and supporting each other are the ones who will very successfully go through the crisis. So those are the views that I would have about how to define the crisis and how to plan well ahead in advance for that.
Thanks, Abhi. So let's have some, because you come from a diverse background. You are curious, also curious to know some specific stuff around strategy and not more on pandemics and other stuff. So Himanshu, you do double work to take keynote address your friend here. And a very important question for you, especially generally what the strategy is nothing but making choices, and sometimes trade-offs. And your goal, your dual goal, only creating value. Your client will have some expectations, creating a value of the brand. You are a brand building expert. And your perspectives will decide how you manage those expectations of the client purely from the brand point of view.
So, I think if you were to ask Abra, this one to the panelist studies, because one of the unfortunate experience, at least in my career, I've had that, and most intensely during COVID, of course, but even otherwise, was that every time there was economic pressure on the business, for whatever reasons, the first tendency was to ignore the value of the brand in the process. Even with the ones who actually have a strong brand, they would tend to get more transactional and tactical in first protecting the business and then building any long-term sort of a space for brand to sort of either leverage it or at least sustain where they are. And I think that is one part which remains core area of conflict. Most of my experiences with with the senior leaders of the companies and clients we work with. I mean, of course, there is some merit in what they say, but I think in such situations, always finding that perfect sort of balance between the short term and the long term, I think is something where most confusions happen, and which was also some bit of parts of my initial chat was also around that. As all of you as future leaders of some of these companies or your own, don't lose sight of the intangible value of your business, right? You don't understand how that can protect you. I mean, my memory tells me right now recently, not recently exactly, but I think that case happened, I think, 2-3 years ago. In UK, you must have heard of that, right? They ran out of chicken supply. I mean, and what is KFC without chicken, right? And UK, half of UK lives on it, etc. Right? Have you guys heard of this? Anybody? Yeah. All they did was apologize. Now, how do you get away from that? And after that, their businesses boomed. Not that the supply chain issues were sorted out overnight. It took them many more weeks after that, in fact, to get it back to order. But it was the aura of the brand and its honesty and its simplicity in which it was known to communicate and did communicate yet again, staying in character, is how. But in such crisis, in the context of crisis for brands in different ways, in my sense, I think the biggest brand advantage you have is that you have license to apology. And you do get apologized if you're sincere about it. And a lot of people in such scenarios don't appreciate that, and that's, in my view, rather unfortunate. So I think the struggle, your point specifically, I think is always the challenge between the right and the left brain decision making. And you have to do a bit of both. But I think what is sad is sometimes the brand side of the argument just gets lost. And then silly things like one Daru brand launching sanitizer happens, so you know what happens with that. Yeah.
Thank you. So, you come with a cruise background in terms of organizations, various houses, advertisement houses, and typically many of this creative side, predominantly led by people. If you're not sure there, I'd say yes, less of that stuff. So when you do this kind of work, how do you fit in people part in your mid-term, long-term strategies?
I think, one, whether it's mid-term, short-term, or long-term, the most fundamental building block of any organization is people. And it's never really a question of fitting them in, it's always a question of starting from them. I don't know, you must have read about the service profit chain. And what the service profit chain actually does is that it reverses how we've typically seen a business perform, where you either start from your product and then get to profits. What the service profit chain actually does is that it starts the entire process from people and says that when you have the right kind of people in the right places for the right job, you start from there, and then it sort of gets you to every right place, whether it's in terms of your profits, in terms of your performance, in terms of you making the kind of product that you want to make, in terms of the kind of profile and positioning that you want to create for yourself in the market. So it's, like I said, it's not, at least in my mind, a question of fitting people in, but it's a question of, or rather it's a priority of starting from people always. We are often tend, especially service organization and creative organization, where our only product actually is people and what they can think and the ideas that they can bring. And when you think from that lens, then you kind of start thinking about the point that you made about culture. And if you go by the famous line that culture eats strategy for breakfast, I couldn't believe it more. For creative industries, but not just alone. If you have an organization culture that lets people strive for who they are, for what they can bring to the table, and which is where the importance of diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging cannot be underscored. Because today, especially as we feel, there's so many different points of view, whether it's religious, cultural, from a gender identity perspective. The more you let people be who they are, bring their best selves to work, the more they're likely to thrive and survive and thrive, especially in real businesses like ours. But also In the context of people and, let's say, crisis or economic downturns, I think the most important thing that organizations must focus on, while there's financial well-being of people always in focus, the emotional well-being of people must take center stage. And there's so many ways of getting to it. I mean, the best organizations that have survived, that have really overcome a crisis, are the ones that, in terms of crisis, have doubled down on their training budgets, have doubled down on their collaboration initiatives, have doubled down on how they can make their employees connect with employees in other parts and share stories of difficulties and share strategies in terms of how they can overcome them together. So those are the times of crisis. I think the importance of ERGs in organizations, because ERGs serve a great role in making people come together and not just taking their own life forward, but also the organization forward. So I think taking care of not just the financial well-being, but the emotional well-being of people, that's very important. That has a direct connect to productivity, the point that you made earlier. And apart from that, I think in terms of crisis, especially from a creative industry point of view, I think reskill, upskill, and redeploy are three things that you've got to sort of continuously and proactively do. In the 3 years that we sort of saw COVID, the industry that I come from, for instance, there were organizations that winded up or couldn't survive it because they couldn't see the impact that technology would have on our business. But then there were organizations who retrained and reskilled and quickly upskilled their people with new technologies that are changing the face of communications and advertising in the business. And those are the brands, those are the businesses which will now sort of, lead the industry in times to come. So yeah, I mean, these are the various things that we do from a people perspective.
Thanks, Anil. That is well said. I think, and people part, both attracting talent and retaining talent will be always a challenge, how to. And it's more when we have some downturn is happening because they are lessons. Thanks, Anil. Harish, you come out as a very, I think many of us, including you, we do a lot of line job, you are a business leader, you have people, big boss is telling a lot of stuff happen. But on process improvement and process-based projects and initiatives, it's very important to get cross-functional support, seriously, without any so-called authority pressure or some super boss is telling. So how do you manage driving strong process orientation in your organization or elsewhere in your previous experience and build as interdependency among cross-functional?
Okay, there is a saying that a sea cannot sink a ship until unless water goes into it. So, during the formation of any organization or any department or any line of business, our processes should be created in such a manner that there should be a moat in that business, in line of business. For example, his brand is having a separate moat, Louis V, I will say, as a table brand. It's having a moat that the quality is very much superb. So that moat has to be created in that your process formation stage. So how we can do that? There are people textbook techniques. You can deploy Six Sigma, you can deploy various other techniques that can improve your business model using AI, using ML. For example, in fleet operations, we, for routing of our, for improvisation of routes or transit time monitoring, we use AI and ML techniques. So regularly that our model keep on improving itself. So processes helps in the time of distress because when the war was not there, we had created such a process that it will not be affected when war is there.
Thanks. Anshuman, many years ago, basically marketing, that kind of background. I had one of our senior person in Rivers in one of the sessions. He said, it was around 10 years back, in future, brands will not buy supply chain, right? Actually, we are seeing now e-commerce is a good example. You although there's a name. In that aspect, so how do you create competitive edge as supply chain, and how you use technology to make it a full cycle?
Rightly mentioned. I'll say supply chain is a backbone for any organization in any particular time also, whether it be downturn or is it during the rosy time also. Now, during COVID time, supply chain disruption created, or rather it actually highlighted all organizations that a separate focus has to be carried out in supply chain perspective. Selling a product, developing a product can be one of the things, but until unless it's not sold out in market at the right place at the right time, your products, preparing and producing a product won't make any sense out there. There are multiple strategies to work upon the supply chain, to sustain supply chain. You might have heard during COVID times, more than 300 bunkers standing in sea, carrying oil. Nobody is a taker out there. What to do with the oil? Complete disruption happening. China closing its boundaries, reserving all containers. So multiple things. So this pandemic actually highlighted the word loopholes in supply chain. So multiple strategies needs to be worked upon on the supply chain. Let me give you a couple of examples. Rather than giving strategies, maybe you can better relate it with examples. Supposing I need to buy, say again, let me go with my previous organization first and then coming to the present organization. Now for mining and other active metal business, you require ammonium nitrate. Now, ammonium nitrate is used for as an explosive. Even during COVID time, during Ukraine conflict time also, the same issue rose. Now, major producer or major exporter is Ukraine and Russia. What happens? You cannot get the supplies because they are busy in their own conflict. They are not going to least bothered about our businesses. So there comes the another strategy is, can you develop other resource? Can you work out something different which can provide you an alternative to carry out your business? So this is one of the key strategies, whether it be you call it vendor replacement, vendor development, whatever you call it. But it's word simple, looks very simple, but it involves multiple strategies. Similarly, let me give you another example. A lot of countries are facing issues of raw materials, or rather, let me put it minerals. For example, lead, which is like in a huge demand. Whether it be it's getting saturated by lithium-ion EV batteries, or whether it be lead acid batteries, no, you have a limited resource. How do you go about it? So there comes another strategy, which few of my colleagues might have discussed in the morning session, closed economy, or circular economy, what you call it. Can we reuse it? Can we you can say cycle it, rather than purely you can say getting dependent on the virgin material? Can we work upon that strategy? That's another strategy which we need to work upon. That's very, very difficult. Yesterday I was in one of the CII conference wherein they were depicting what globally countries like, or maybe continents like US or continent like Europe and continent like Asia is working on the closed economy or circular economy. You will be surprised. They have the percentage of circular economy for a particular metal is more than 60 to 70%. Whereas in India, let me be very specific coming back to India, it's hardly 20%. So can we redefine our strategies on supply chain? Because what will happen is the more you want the material, you need to be dependent upon the external forces, which again during COVID times and conflict times have actually highlighted. You need to have a different strategy. You can't be dependent upon the external resources. You need to work out something different. So there are multiple layers of strategies which needs to be worked upon in supply chain. There are multiple strategies on concretes, whether we containers we saw, whatever issues we saw during the COVID times, can we work on a different strategy. So I feel that in strategy plays, in supply chain strategy plays the very, very critical role. That's why I use the word in beginning, a backbone for an organization. Supposingly if a particular product gets manufactured, doesn't come to market on time, that product manufactured is of no use. It's an obsolete material. I'm purely talking right now on an operational front. Why I'm saying on operational front? Because you will be able to relate it rather than going on a bigger picture right now. So we need to redefine our strategy, analyze our strategies on supply chain, redefine, need a, you can say a backup plan, wherein supposing if anything, conflicts like Ukraine and Israel happens, what will happen? You can't close your business. So you need to revise your strategies. So I think maybe strategy in supply chain is very, very crucial at matter. You would like to say something?
Yeah, no, so I was just adding something. I think, very well said, Ashu, in the sense that I think clearly if you're not able to sort of ensure demand fulfillment in such situations, it is obviously going to be of no value to the organization. But I have slightly, let's say, the other end of the argument as well, right? Which is no fulfillment is necessary if there is no demand, right? So I'm coming from the argument of demand creation as well in these times, which is, let's say, for argument's sake, not because of its hierarchy, but let's say top of the funnel argument versus the bottom of the funnel argument. I mean, both have to coexist, of course. And I think that was the point I was responding to earlier, your question, that how do brands and companies deal with it? I think demand creation as a consistent job. Now the tools of demand creation could vary in such times. It might be new technology, new product, some diversion into the portfolio, etc. But in my view, I think focusing on demand creation in these times as well, maybe differently, but in these times as well is as critical as ensuring the demand fulfillment at the bottom. Yeah.
Completely agree with you, your point. So again, let me just give an example. Maybe I'm dragging it, but you might have heard an article recently during that COVID time. You might have heard that coffee industry started suffering. Why? A lot of articles have been published. I hopefully most of you might have read those articles. When they went into details, one of my friends is from that industry. He said, actually we moved towards digital one, so we lost. Why we lost? Because those pan and shops, like, instead of change they used to give chop. Even though they subsequently industry actually denied, saying that impact is there, but actually it showed in their books. That impacted hugely. Now what happened was, during COVID time when we moved towards a digital one, shop owners were actually got stranded when we as a consumer used to pay through digital. And we used to say supposedly 75 paise. So we used to type 75 paise. So they didn't get that opportunity to sell us that topic. So what happened was during that time the demand went completely opposite. Then again you have to revise your strategy, which my team members or friends in industries are doing it. So they redefine that strategy. So demand creation, you rightly said, you have to be innovative. You have to think something out of the box. You can't have that particular trend setting that this is what is happening and this will go till ages, or I use the word dinosaur age. You have to redefine. What I should actually mention in this slide, IIM. Every 10 years they reinvent themselves. Maybe 10 years is in present time is a longer time now. Maybe 2 years or 3 years they have to redefine their strategy. Whether it be on supply chain, whether it be on the product side.
I mean, we spoke about strategies on changes and especially managing ecosystem. Very specific. So, as part of the strategy, your company strategy and certainly long term, when you put down some strategy, and I'm sure top management broadly agrees, so how to manage the down the line, the key functions of the strategy. Similar way, but slightly on the strategical manner. So what are the basically pushbacks you get, and in management, I'm sure there are a lot of stuff on conflict management and stuff. So on a day-to-day life, so what is your experience of managing big M&As in case that kind of stuff?
Sure, sir. So I'll just split it into two parts. One is the buy-in of the organization of the overall strategy. And second is also a part of the execution which happens through. On the buying part, our organization structure is also quite unique in the sense that there are 7-8 verticals all headed by CEOs. All of them report into my boss of the engineering company, and strategy gets defined at two places. My personal belief is that strategy lies with the guy who holds cash. So in this case, if it's a conglomerate kind of structure, all the cash has to go in to the center. And then the center takes call, in which case my boss takes the call, so where to allocate capital and which particular line of business should get money from the center. But we still do it in a very democratic manner. So there is a plan that we create from a 5-year, 10-year perspective at an organizational level. A large part of that plan is based on what the historical performance has been, what kind of businesses got created. And also centrally we look at if there are new lines of business that we should get into. Keeping the crisis part aside or the recession part aside, if we take a 10-year view, we would want to see an organization that continuously keeps growing, especially if you're operating in a country which is a high growth country, right? So one plan is about building the overall growth. And then we look at the existing portfolio, which is all these 7-8 verticals that the CEOs are running, and see what contribution they make to the overall growth of the company. The balance has to come from the new initiatives or new growth, on which I and my team simply works on. There is another plan that the business CEOs make, which is specific to their businesses. And that plan is then merged with the central plan. In terms of buying, it's pretty easy because there are only certain areas where we need to give a hard push or may get a pushback from the other side. It is how much money they'll get to spend, how much profitability they should target, what kind of growth targets they should take, which are all quantitative numbers. Given that they are running the business, they're in the best position to know what is working for them, which markets are working, what product categories are working. So as far as the existing portfolio is concerned, we heavily rely on their inputs. The only controlling levers are basically the capital allocation and the expectation on growth and profitability. But the other part, which is about newer lines of growth, newer markets, newer geographies, newer lines of business as well, which we manage centrally because it's just a couple of people to convince, it becomes easy. And because it's part of a larger top-down plan, we have an alignment with the group offices and other important stakeholders in terms of, let's say we want to target a new brand in a specific consumer segment. For example, when we started our portfolio creation in 2017, before 2017 we were largely a menswear oriented company. We used to dress up men to work. That was a core proposition. 2012-13 we acquired Downturns, which was a value retailer. But there was still a large segment where the young consumers were looking for brands, but we did not have those segments. Other thing is 30% of the market was still ethnic even at that time, where we had good presence. In 2017 onward, we decided that we'll run a innerwear business, we'll build a portfolio of ethnic wear brands. We also wanted to get into sportswear. We eventually acquired Reebok in India. So all those things were created in 2017. We just, in a very focused manner, kept executing it year on year for next 6-7 years. And a part of that is the M&A process, where I think especially in these kind of environments, I think any large company would see it very opportunistically. A lot of laggards or number 2, number 3 in the market become available for consolidation, and that's a regular process in every downturn. The smaller ones are the ones who shrink and they get acquired. So larger companies take that opportunity. So I think that's how we manage both the parts.
Thanks, Anthony. So basically, a couple of our students presented on the strategy and few great examples. Even though I'm a lifer HUL, I admire P&G. They did the right thing. They expanded, and for any great brand or good brand, you should be relevant. So P&G will not sell 10 rupees tie or 2 rupees Ariel everywhere. They sell in India, in some maybe North African countries. So what it tells is, if you are in a business of brands or any business, be relevant. Take India, whether you have downtrend, uptrend, or knowing market, being relevant to them is important, because apart from the complexity of large country, 70% rural, what is unique about India? India is the only country in the world, every 200 kilometers, tea taste changes. From leaf to CTC, and I sold tea for many years, it changes. Dialect changes, all those things, demographics, When you have this kind of challenges, great companies seize this as an opportunity. And they go to people like Manju and Amit to create wonderful campaigns and be relevant. Great examples, P&G is a great example. Good companies, a lot of examples Manju has told. What they did is they stayed relevant, they upgraded themselves. Technology stories, paid in a great story. Even though they started at that time, no one knows there's an app they can do, how they stay relevant, how they keep moving. This is fundamentals. And this, if you have basic tips on this, you can manage uptrend, downtrends slightly better than others. You can manage that. For the fundamentals we should be looking at.
I think there was one more part which was about adoption of technology that we unfortunately learned the hard way during COVID. But I think if it becomes an integral part of your overall strategic planning from a longer term perspective, a lot of those things people could have anticipated much in advance and would have taken that step. And that's why I think the strategic planning has to be more comprehensive. So let's say when a B2C company, if you're moving with the customers, you're evolving. If your customers are moving to online, it's a call that, it's something that is obvious, bound to happen. There shouldn't be any resistance towards moving to a new thing. So I'll give you an example. Most of the brands used to hate e-commerce before 2020, right? Everyone said that nobody buys e-commerce only for people who are looking for discounts. E-com is also something where brands get cluttered. We do the Shein, we do the salience and all that. 2020, everyone started learning e-commerce. So, because that's the only place where most of the customers were. Now, if this could have been made as part of your business model itself, right? You can't say that, what happens in most of the organizations, when we talk about digital, they talk about backend digitization, and they talk about, okay, we'll create an app which will solve your problem. But it's not about connecting with the customers as well. So whether it is a brand-oriented company or a B2C company or even a B2B company, I think digital tells you that your customers are moving in a direction, and digital is that way to bridge the gap between where you are and where the customers are. We ourselves saw some 5 times growth in our e-commerce. It's not a channel which everyone loves, and the brand people especially told up, but I think there was a beautiful arrangement that e-com players and the brands came up with, through which both of them could sustain that period. And now it has almost started sitting in the base of how a business model could look like. So, now nobody questions that why should we do e-commerce, because we have so much of retail space available, we are opening stores, there's so much under-penetration of any category in India. If you go down the box strata to smaller towns, etc. People are almost assuming that e-commerce is also part of their business, and they are creating mechanisms, tactics, and also building strategies to ensure that it keeps growing in a profitable manner. So I think that's another way of how not to wait for a change and then build strategy, but almost think ahead and devise a change as part of your core business proposition.
Thanks, sir. Comment anything on that on basic
Yeah.
which you spoke on presentation?
I think very well said on all of these fronts. I just have a small observation and my closing sort of view, and we'll then hopefully close it up to the room. Now, in fact, this was a thought I was having when we were discussing this last hour or so, that one, of course, COVID has been the most recent and the most globally challenging and very severe experience all of us have gone through. I wish, at least in my career, I don't see such a thing again. But there are actually far more frequent, a lot of other things which perhaps are getting overshadowed by COVID-19 right now. And I've just kind of run a mental check on this. I mean, I spoke about one, which was demonetization, which is, and I'm particularly referring to a lot of localized challenges, rather than things that are global scale, like global scale wars, etc. Fine, they're there, of course, they impact us because of, like we won't discuss about the connectedness of the businesses today. But if you look at a lot of localized issues, like how India has dealt with the surge in the crude oil price, right? How demonetization I spoke about, the inconsistent sort of climate issues, thanks to climate change challenges, etc., which we are now very evidently feeling. I mean, this is an observation I have, and I'm leaving it to all of you. I think in a lot of marketing conversations, particularly, I would say that for other areas, but I think there's a tendency of slightly more urban metro thought process. This country is still 70% of it relies on agrarian occupations. So when there's bad weather and agriculture sector gets impacted, you must imagine the point I was making about demand creation. There is no money for the demand creation to be leveraged, right? And I would really urge all of you, when you're looking at dealing with economic downturns, and there are big global scale causes, but there are a lot of localized causes, sometimes at city or state level as well. Change in tax, GST. I mean, GST in the way it has impacted businesses is actually a crisis or economic challenge, right? So just widen your horizon for that is my first observation to leave you with. And second is that don't lose sight of where the real India is, where the real buying capacity is. I mean, we are such a large nation, that even 0.5% of it can represent a very large value, and sometimes those data points can be very misleading. But the real India is not where actually perhaps us. We have to make deliberate attempts to look through the glass and realize where the real India is. So when you're dealing with such challenges, don't lose sight of that.
Thanks, I think.
Many organizations like Kodak or Nokia or Blockbuster, you must have read in your books, died due to not accepting changes. So it must be a part of this organizational strategy that you must accept change. Process improvement must be at the core of the strategy. If you are not improving your processes with respect to time, certainly there will be a buy-off to that brand. So this was, there was no economic downturn due to which these, I will say, brands died. They died due to they didn't pivot themselves. So we need to pivot our brands regularly and continually. Next.
I just want to add a note, and everything that other members of the panel have said is absolutely true. whether it's accepting change or revving up your operations or from a supply chain perspective. And I think beyond that, what businesses got to do, whether it's a COVID-19 kind of economic crisis or any other crisis, is at the end of the day, we must not forget that we are in the business of building deep relationships. And those deep relationships that you build with your consumers, the deep relationships that you build with your partners, the deep relationships that you build with your employees, give you the permission, the license, and oftentimes the defense to the armor to really shield through these difficult times. And what goes a great deal in service of creating or fostering these relationships is really having a vision on why is your business here, and making sure that it's not just a transactional approach that you have to what you're serving to your consumers, but be led by a larger vision. And in today's day and age, I think the conversation of purpose-led brand is sort of kind of debatable. Yet, I think the importance of it cannot be underscored. To continuously remind yourself that yes, there is a need for the business to serve a need. Demand creation is important, but what is the larger cause, what is the larger purpose that's driving you there, and that will help you foster those deep relationships with all your stakeholders. That is extremely critical in surviving and thriving in this crisis.
I completely agree what you are just mentioning. Exactly things I am aware of. Just one more thing, we need to reinvent ourselves every time. And we have to prepare or make a tie-up or bonding with our consumer in such a way that we can predict, which is actually, you can say maybe we are halfway through, we can actually predict and understand the requirement of our consumer going forward, which can be. So what we are doing is right now we are discussing on the present one, what their thoughts are, what their inclinations are, but can we look into one step ahead, saying what their requirement might be in future, what can be their requirement in future, and based on that can we redefine our strategy, or can we reinvent us. So I feel having a very good bonding and relationship with all the stakeholders, including your customers, that's the key to success in tough times.
So business has a tendency to expand. If business is not expanding, definitely it is contracting. To expand business, we need to increase our manpower and all. So in time of COVID, we saw several brands flourish like anything. For example, Amazon flourished; it doubled in terms of gross margins or sale values. But when COVID went, the sale got down and they started removing people. There were a lot of attrition and there were a lot of pink slips to the employee. So what is important that, but earlier panel also told that there must be multi-skilling must be there. So we must prepare our manpower in such a fashion that if the demand is high, we can prepare our manpower for increased demand, by increasing shifts and all.
Thanks all. I think we'll open up Q&A. Students can ask.
A sincere and unending thanks to our dignitaries for making this session truly insightful for our students with their valuable knowledge and expertise. Now, I would like to open the floor for the questions.
Good evening everyone. My name is Richard and my question is, during an economic downturn, how do companies strike a balance between implementing cost-cutting measures to withstand the economic downturn and making long-term investments for sustainable growth?
Let me reply to your question. During downturn, the first obvious thing which comes to our mind is this is not wrong. Why this is done? This is to sustain ourselves, to ensure, to recheck our organization processes, procedures, can we bring down our expenditures. And based on that, why this is being done, primarily is being done to ensure there is not much effect on the other aspects like employees. Ultimately everything, because openly saying none of the organization are here for any, I'll use the word not charity, but they are here for profits. And for that first thing which comes to anybody's mind is cost. And that's a very right step to take. Now when you actually cut down your costs based on different strategies and processes what you work upon, you can't really sit back saying, okay, I have reduced the cost. Next step is, how can I redeploy that particular fund or that particular amount? How can I go in tough times to expand myself? Expand doesn't mean just on investment fronts. Expansion can be anything. On thoughts, more focus on R&D, more focus on new product developments, maybe mergers and acquisitions, collaborations. So that's, I'll use the word, that's our natural way of strategies what we as an organization carry down. Larger organizations. Organizations, small organizations, when they don't redefine themselves and don't work on that, you can say set procedures, there becomes a problem. Like that? Anything? Yeah.
I just de-glamorize the whole cost cutting thing. I think what is important is that everyone knows that we're in the business of business because we want to make money, we want to sustain ourselves. Usually what happens is that if you've not expected an event like this, you're already on a very fast track in terms of your growth trajectory or movement, etc. Most of the cost is always built in advance of anticipated revenue. But if you hit a roadblock in terms of revenue growth not coming in, you seriously look at your cost. As Anshuman said, a lot of that observation on cost is not necessarily from the perspective of cutting down costs left, right, and center. It's mainly from the perspective of diverging funds. So you know that there are certain areas where you had invested just because you were thinking that 1 year, 2 years down the line, that part will become a large part of the organization, but you realize that maybe it's not the time to do new things, but focus on what your core business is. And you take away those costs and plow them back into your business. It's also a great measure to help generate and preserve cash, which you require during such downturns. Given that downturns usually run for a couple of months. And it's also a great, a great way of looking at how you can make the organization more agile and nimble. I mean, perfect example is healthcare sector. Before COVID, most of them used to struggle to make a 10% EBITDA margin. Today, all of them are 30% EBITDA margin. It's not that obviously there is health growth as well, but a large part of that efficiency is coming from the fact that during COVID, they looked at their costs very, very carefully. And they realized that in a lot of areas they were overspending, they were over-investing in anticipation of something happening in future. And if you look at the leader healthcare organization, all of them have 30% EBITDA margin today. So it's a great opportunity, but it should not be, it should not be glamorized so much. It's just part of your process of running a business in regular course of time. If you're in a good environment, if you see so much potential in the market, you'll invest, and that investment will show up either in new capex or new cost. But on the other side, if you're facing a situation where the growth is difficult to come by, you will carefully look at your cost, more from the perspective of redeploying that cash somewhere.
One line oversimplification in our government pursuit of lowering the complexities of this. See, any business, finally, in my view, is something about managing the perfect equilibrium between demand and supply. Very simple. Over simple maybe. Because everything else is an outcome of that, or is in pursuit of managing that. So to your point, nobody gets always out of cutting costs or overspending or over-investing ahead of time. There is a thought process which is going into, in the short term, midterm at least, try and manage the perfect equilibrium between demand and supply. And you deal with difficulties when you are not on top of managing that. So I think that's a larger conceptual response, just for you to write a nice code somewhere.
Thanks.
I like only one part of it covered. This cost cutting, it is not a phenomena only for emergencies. I think, as Manshu has said, every business has got margin expectation. So whenever some eventuality hits us, we will redefine margin expectation, whether it's in COVID or because we have top line, you generate top line, you generate gross profit and your cost. We should be sustaining that for some level and do all those cost efficiencies and higher productivity. And this happens even, especially in many companies when competition comes. Don't wait for pandemics or something. One big competition, your entire revenues depends on one or two SKU or brand. Companies will go through this. At that time, those companies will say, okay, next 6 months, I will reinvest in the brand, I will do everything. My margin expectation will be something else. Then we have to go and present this as a strategy. So we are going to holding our course. It's not like short term, every day we do these things. And broadly, it's a game we have to play and see that we are not diluting further than what is the margin expectation.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for your valuable time and such insightful session. My question is, how important is it to concentrate on customer-centric strategies during the economic downturn? And also, what action businesses are taking to ensure that their customers remain satisfied and loyal?
This is important at any point of time in the business. Whether it's rainy day or it's not rainy day. If your customer is not satisfied, you are not customer centric, businesses will eventually go to die. So if at the time of depression, you can function in the same fashion as you were functioning earlier, but you must satisfy your customer when you are functioning very well or you are not functioning. Your economy is not functioning.
If you take in the batch of bankrupt or
in the case of a bankruptcy of an organization, then definitely organization is closed. It's not in the business at that time. At that time, you have to.
Okay, sir, thank you.
Customer centricity is a evergreen, forever value, regardless of the times that you're in.
Thank you so much.
You need to work round the clock. Especially in logistics, we are working round the clock to satisfy the customer. So, it's the essence of business that customer must be satisfied, and you must satisfy customer better than your peers. What your peers are doing, then only you can thrive in your business.
Let me just pitch in here. So let me go back slightly again back to 2 years back during COVID time. Your buying capacity got changed. Your thought process got changed. Which was earlier brands or which were the values which you were earlier buying the product. During COVID time, your thought process got changed and you started shifting towards a more value added product. Now, as a company, during that time, only that company actually survived, which understood the requirement of our customer. Now, as a company, that becomes the most critical role. Whether, as you rightly mentioned, whether it's a rainy season or not rainy season. But during rainy season, it's much more important. So based on that, you have to develop your strategies, obviously going through multiple procedures like customer surveys and other things to it, understanding the requirements, and then based on that, you actually redefine your strategies, your products, And all together, you have to more get related with your consumers or customers with different strategies, like whether it be promotional incentives, whether it be multiple other incentives, whether it be on an emotional fronts. Develop your customer, build the confidence in your customer, and then, so what happens is, during tough times, it becomes much more critical. And that should be the only focus. Every time it is the focus, but during tough times, it becomes the most important thing. And if we have seen in brands in the country itself, automobile segment like Hindustan Motors, they didn't bother about consumers. Nothing to say on what happened to their fate. Okay?
In fact, even in the case of, I was thinking about what you asked, and initially I thought there can't be an answer, but actually there is. Even in the case of bankruptcy, learn from examples like what happened to Kingfisher Airlines or Jet Airways. How they dealt with their moment of bankruptcy or going belly up. If they had dealt with that better, the chances of their business revival would have been far better. Right? So, customer centricity, and when I say customer, I also mean your employees, your partners, all internal stakeholders and external, all of them I'm defining as customers. There is a reason to keep them in the heart of everything you do, even in the wake of bankruptcy, if you want to revive it at some point.
And just one more, if you might have heard the article on cafe pocketing.
Yeah.
That's a live example. Shut, I'll use the word shut. No, it's on back. Lost promoter, but still now has spun back with double strength, with different strategies, different thought processes. So yes, for an organization, bankruptcy is a painful thing. But if you have that, I use the word, if you can take both with its own, it's your thing.
Thank you so much.
There is a saying that a stitch in time saves 9. So if you are able to serve the customer in time, then you can save 9 stitches at the time of economic downturn.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Yeah. Sir, as you discussed, collaborations is one of the factors to be considered for economic downturn technique. And I just wanted to understand that like how can we leverage the collaborations within the industry for mutual benefits, and what are some of the challenges faced during this process?
Sure. I think collaboration from the point of view of one, when you look at your internal employees and how do you restructure teams, collaboration comes into place there. But even otherwise, I think when it comes to certain economic downturns and related to demand creation, is it possible to create new demand by thinking of a collaboration with your competitor or with an associated category? Take fashion for instance. Can fashion collaborate with sport to create new demand? Can entertainment collaborate with wellness to create new demand? So there are various ways in which certain collaboration and partnerships go and certain are instrumental in helping you see through crisis in my mind. Apart from the fact that during crisis, the utmost thing of importance is for a person to feel secure, whether it's your employee or you yourself or your partners or your suppliers. And that feeling of security is established when you foster togetherness. And apart from that, like I said, if you look at these innovative partnerships, they have a direct impact on your bottom line. Your demand is clear. There's so much potential.
I just add a few lines there. I think collaboration is something that we use tremendously to our benefit during the downturn. Because everything was shut down to utilize manufacturing capacity, to lying idle, we actually started making masks for the world. Because our front-end retail stores were shut, we collaborated with Flipkart of the world and created specialized merchandise for them. I think a lot of those things happened during that time more as a reaction to an event. But if this could have been thought proactively, that business, I think business is also about building an ecosystem partnership. with your people, with your customers, with all the other stakeholders in the business, like e-com players in this case, vendors in this case. I think if that partnership would stay together, a lot of these downturns as a collective set, we can easily go through. I think that was the biggest learning that we had with that.
You guys all know Kodak is a brand being revived globally. Do you know the single biggest collaborator which they work with to achieve that? Correct? Which collaboration, most, if not millions, but which was the big starting point which completely changed the game for them? It was Lady Gaga. You know that? You heard of Lady Gaga? Yes. Good, thank you. So, Lady Gaga became the unannounced chief design officer of Kodak. And the next 3 products she personally designed for them with the condition that she will never endorse it publicly and it will never be revealed at the time that she is the one behind that. That changed it. So that's another example of looking at very diverse ideas of collaboration to completely revive literally a dead brand actually.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. We might take this question. Next 2-3 questions we want girl students to ask. Required.
How the upcoming elections, 2024 elections, can change the economic conditions afterwards? How the upcoming 2024 elections can change the economic conditions afterwards?
Somebody told me I look like Amit Shah, sir.
I'll quickly open it. I think a large part of the current downturn is an after impact of COVID. COVID is still a 3-year-old event and we feel that it's over, but it's still not over. Whatever the global economy had to go through and also in India, most of those disruptions have not been able to come back, okay? And we've plotted different categories for the last 3 years. We've seen how different categories have moved. Even people who have money, they've allocated their money pulling away from QSR and fashion to travel, to more experiential things. All those factors are coming together to create this thing. Now, if the government comes back, you're saying 70% of the economy is rural, a large part of it is still below the top end of the market, there the pressure is going to continue. Post-election, if the spends increase, which hopefully they will, and also because of the state elections where they won, most probably they'll go ahead more confidently and spend. I think that is what will reverse the whole trajectory of consumption.
No, I think that was the last point I was going to add. Basically, I think it will hugely depend upon, I think now, subsidizing people's living, getting them out of a trap, etc. I think that phase is hopefully over. More and more, I think any government will focus towards building spending power with the consumers will help. I mean, any guesses how much is the per day income of a farmer in our country right now? Sorry? 27 rupees. Yes, less than 2 cigarettes. So, please. So, unless the spending power goes down to that 70% agrarian occupation dependent audience, and I hope that going forward, now that we are out of all the other effects, mostly of COVID, etc., whatever policies and sort of actions taken by the new government, whoever that may be, are going to fuel that, because that is finally going to move us towards 5, 7, 10, 30 trillion, whatever we will at some point do that. Otherwise, I guess, you asked us marketing question, you asked for long actions, but I think that's the only fundamental marketing hope I have of the election.
Yeah, overall, as Himanshu said, if you see from the consumption point, middle class has to spend more, and a lot of data show middle class spends more. He has also given. Broadly, we put the pyramid, the middle of the pyramid should be earning more and spending more. That's the first one. And when it happens, the poor and the farmer segment, there will be a natural upgradation. If this both activity happens on this macro level, we are doing well. And the one thing which government should be keep an eye is forex. I'm sure he buys a lot of stuff from outside. That also we might become incompetitive, both in terms of export imports. Otherwise, these are ifs and buts. I'm sure we are doing this.
I'd just like to add a couple of points more there. So, if you see the Maslow's hierarchy, we have already completed the basics. During COVID, we had to hit at the, you can say, bottommost level, wherein basic needs and other things were to be catered. I'm considering the entire population, just not the free populations and other things. What happens is, as a government, what I see, government will have a different focus now. In going forward, 2024 will be, there will be a push on the infrastructure because on backdrop, we have a huge success internationally on the, you can say, economy front. Globally, it is being acclaimed that we have a very strong fundamentals. Going forward, we see that there will be a huge focus on infrastructure as well as a huge focus on new organizations or new startups. Even though there has been a lot of startup buzz around, but a lot of startups you might see going forward to it. Wherein, whether it be, doesn't matter, it's not like the startups from experienced one, freshers ones also, to try new ideas, where a lot of, you can say, assistance from the banks will be promoted by the government. So what they are trying to say, they have catered to the basic levels. Now going above the basic levels, where infrastructure development and the industry developments can be a focus area which I see.
Thanks.
Good evening, sir. My name is Abhilasha and I would like to know your opinion on the long-term solutions.
Please repeat your question. Yes.
So I would like to know your opinion on the long-term solutions to minimizing the adverse effects of external challenges on India's economic outlook.
Sorry, if I understood your question right, you're saying how to minimize the impact from external sources?
Yeah, your opinion on on solutions or any solutions.
So, I mean, if you just look back till about late 90s or even beyond a little bit, we were almost living in our own bubble. And part of the reason was that we were not so connected economically to the rest of the world, so it didn't matter. In my personal view, unless may differ, but I don't think that's a possibility that you can isolate yourself and not be impacted by it. But what you can do surely now, having learned in the last about 15 odd years how things impact and where, I mean, at a larger scale, I think the country first, as well as then individual organizations who especially have, let's say, cross-border business relationships, they need to formulate strategies, what we were discussing through the day pretty much this afternoon, on building certain resilient frameworks through which you minimize the impact. But to be completely unaffected by that, to me, I think that era is in my view.
I think connect to the point that's been made in the earlier question, or answers to the earlier question, that almost 70% of India is still doesn't have the kind of consumption that it should or it potentially can. So growing internal demand, if only that 70% of India starts to consume as much, then we'll be not just a self-sufficient economy, there will be enough internal demand. I think impact of external forces, and that's one way that you can reduce the impact of external forces.
Yeah. As of now, given our potential and other stuff, we are under-leveraged of exports. Someone has to look into exports, and we see China 15 years, 20 years back. They thrive more on exports, still they are very big. So in our sense, whichever sectors can add, get experts gives you, direct forex, and also there's some other macro, parameter to tell that country is doing well, and that will bring a lot of stability because our bargaining power with anyone, whether we're importing or somewhere, will be far better. I think that one area, one focus, someone has to take charge and get exports out across. We are very strong. We are one of the largest. Still, we are largest agrarian exporters. We are once upon a time large leather exporters. We export premium basmati rice. Many exports are there. That's one focus can add a lot of value for more than stability. It will be a directionally very good factor for.
Just let me add some more points to it. Our focus obviously will be on more indigenization, with government taking multiple steps, whether it be through like Make in India and other campaigns to it. So as an organization, because a huge amount of, you can say when we go for a forex payments, that's a huge cost to us as an organization. So multiple strategies we are working upon, and we see our lower dependence from outside country sources for supplies to the organization, or whether it be raw materials, whether it be other things. So that's our primary focus. So indigenization is a key focus area, and which can help us, which my friends actually just mentioned, on the sales front, on the exports front, that can leverage us. But on the buying front, it's our major focus is on the indigenization, and we see that there will be less dependence on the outside supplies.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Ravi, and I would like you to share some examples, instances, or some specific strategies your industry peers employed successfully during the previous economic downturn, which was very effective and which was very unique. And the second part of my question is, like, how does it feel when you face such challenging situation, which is totally unpredictable? And does it feel like sitting in an examination hall and facing a totally new question, like totally unexpected question paper, and looking at your peers for answers? Like, how does it really feel, and how do you initiate during such challenging time?
Ladies and gentlemen, we will be taking this one last question as we approach the conclusion. If there are any further questions or thoughts, we humbly encourage you to connect directly with our esteemed panelists through the shared profiles. Your engagement is truly appreciated.
Can you repeat the first part of your question especially?
Okay, so the first part of my question is, I would like you to share some instances or some unique strategies that your peer industry friends have implemented successfully.
I'll answer the second one first. Because that answer lies exactly on where the ladder is standing and answering that question from. Right? So, if you are at the bottom of the funnel, right, you are missing your boss, obviously. Right? Because they are taking all the fat salary packages despite you not getting your increments and maybe salary cuts. Right? That's what is happening. The other way around is, you have these puppy-looking faces every morning looking at you, hoping for something good what is going to happen. If you're at the top or somewhere there, right, and struggling to respond to those expectations. So, but on a more serious note, I think the last crisis, I was slightly above the ladder, and I think I felt hugely morally responsible. First and foremost to their well-being and lives, literally lives. I know days when initially, what was that, which was a massive short supply, the amount of efforts I was personally making to help some of our employees and staff members get it using whatever influence, connections, etc. Right? Whole night we used to be out as a team, the whole team in the company, and help in whichever way we can. financially, and all of our also ways, right? But organizationally, I think, obviously in such crisis times, it's the ultimate test of the leaders, of their true character. And some do well, some don't, it's up to them really. But by and large, I think I found most companies, at least at the philosophical level, aligned to the fact that they must step up more than what they would usually do or look after their people. And I think most leaders managed to do that to the extent and possibilities they could. But of course, there are some bad stories on that as well. So I think that's a quick and right answer to that.
People management was changed during that time basically. Previous to COVID era or normal time, everyone used to come at 9 o'clock and go back at 6 o'clock. But during that era, work from office started. In-person meeting to team meeting or Zoom meeting started. So there was a complete drift, complete change in our discussion in our organization and we are organization also. So one-to-one meeting was changed to the online meeting. So that was a great change.
I have a two-part answer to your two-part question. The second part really is a question on leadership. And I don't know if you've already read the story of Ernest Shackleton yet, and if you haven't, then you will. And what he did when he took us through to the South Pole and the kind of crisis that he faced in every situation was a lesson in how leaders deal with crisis. And it always has to be a balance of your people first and then you. And in wake of that, one, of course, resilience, but right decision. I think what kinds of crisis are going to really compel you and force you to do is to make lots of decisions quickly and in the right way. I think that's very important, apart from some of the things like resilience and most importantly, empathy. Nothing gets you through this, and nothing works for a leader better than empathy in times of crisis. As far as the first question is concerned, which is about are there any specific examples or instances that have worked successfully? I think what I'd like to quote is that much before, and this, I owe this to the organization that I work for, much before diversity and inclusion and equity and belonging really became as center stage as it is in business now. About 7 years ago when I brought up the topic of it and starting it in my organization, where not many organizations in India were certain come forth, and the board and the leadership said, yeah, we must do it. And it was done with a view on the future, with a view on times are going to change. And lots of organizations today in India are doing that, Conclave is doing that, and various others. And I think those kind of, I won't even call them calculated risks, but I think those kind of decisions go a long way. At least that's an example in my mind of having created something that has helped in uncertain times and leading each other.
I will try to give some philosophical answers to the questions. I think for the first one, if you look at whether it was this crisis or the last crisis, is it working? Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. So if you look at last two crises, whether it was the Lehman one or the COVID one, I think essentially it teaches you that change is inevitable and change management is possibly the most important aspect that the organization should focus on. I think risk management is a subset of change management. Most of the leadership talks about risk management. But ultimately you have to be ready to expect something like this which is unexpected and should be able to take quick decisions, come up with strategies to get over it. Whether it was in some cases even beauty e-commerce companies trying to get to grocery delivery during COVID. It's almost questioning your own existence, but trying to come up with something which is completely new, which is not what you're known for, but giving you that ability to go through the crisis together. And then, at the end of it, maybe come back to your core form. We were a formal wear company before COVID, right? I mean, we used to sell mostly, as I said, we used to dress men to work. Most of the business suits that you guys are wearing, I don't know if they're from our brands, but that's the stuff that we used to sell, and suddenly people started working from home, nobody was buying formal wear. But it was somebody's vision 10 years back, and he thought of building a casual wear brand, which saw the, the tremendous amount of growth that we saw during that time, especially, also broad categories like innerwear, etc., which shot through the roof during that time. So it was a strategy that was created much before, but just giving that enough strength to the organization to be able to manage the change when it happens. On the second question, again a philosophical answer, it teaches you that you can, in your life, tests, exams will keep happening. You will never be able to get rid of them. When you're sitting for an exam, there are easy options of looking at what other guy is writing, but everyone is writing their own papers, right? We'll all go through that phase. Maybe in written exams, people can still manage somehow, but everyone is going to pass through the same, through their own individual tests, and they'll have to figure out a way to get through it. So I think that also teaches you that you have to expect challenges almost as part of your life, and you should always be ready to go through it.
Let me answer a couple of more questions. I try to give what will happen if I am sitting in an exam or out of service perspective. Okay. Then every business we put annual plan. We do an exercise called what if. So what if this happens? So we have a risk management plan, but no one expected this, right? And when this happened, it's a hard if. We wanted to sail through. I'm sure fellow panelists they said. We protected people first, because if I are in a consumer business, 80-90% of people are there in the field factories. So we ensured that each and everything that happens in their home, we had a so-called law rules, and we connected with them virtually more than ever. I think we showed that sympathy and telling that we are all there, don't worry. I mean, that is one of the biggest lessons for me, because we have seen all glorious years growing faster and other stuff. Have you done homework? We can't do our homework. Can you manage this? Yes. Thanks a lot.
Thank you to our insightful and engaging speakers for responding to all the questions with alacrity. You may now have a seat in the audience and enjoy the conclave further. We would now like to invite Mr. Shyaman Agarwal to conclude the conclave.
A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, respected speakers, diligent faculty members, and fellow students. This has been a truly thought-provoking session. There is a quote, in the face of economic storms, resilient industries navigate turbulent waters with innovation as their compass and adaptability as their sail. And I believe this encapsulates the essence of what we have heard and discussed today. Even in the beginning, Evika and Jill gave a wonderful presentation. They talked about some amazing strategies adopted by different companies with the help of relevant examples. Then, Mr. Himanshu Saxena sir, who had set the momentum, direction and speed of this conclave by disseminating out-and-out knowledge about the theme. He started by emphasizing how rare common sense can be in the times of crisis. By giving the example of exceptional success of Paytm, he quoted, "Focus on causes, not just effects." He also shared some beautiful examples of how smart organizations act independently and sometimes go ahead of time through innovation, foresight and adaptability, showcasing long-term resilience. A special thanks to Mr. Mudhar Kasha sir, who moderated the entire discussion so well and asked thought-provoking questions. He to be more agile across functions in what they do and how they do. Mr. Harish Varmani sir notified that someone must be there looking at the top to see what is working well and what not. He further gave insights on the processes that should be developed in a way which are future-oriented and consistent with the objectives of the company. Mr. Amit K. sir shed light on the importance of collaboration and synergy when the times are not right. He also commented that brand building exercises should not be overlooked in economic downturns. Further highlighting the role of people in organizations, Sir briefly explained how companies should focus on the emotional well-being of its people. Continuing the method of learning, Mr. Amit Dwivedi sir stated to always try and strengthen the balance sheet while implementing strategies. He also notified that culture of the organization is something in which continuous investment is needed. Taking this conclave to its apex, Mr. Anshuman Srivastava sir gave the example of how his company made an opportunity out of the pandemic by taking steps towards technology. Sir insisted to think differently and work differently in tough times to stay competitive in the market. Lastly, I would like to extend my gratitude to all the esteemed industry veterans for sharing their invaluable guidance and responding to our enthusiastic students. None of us is going back empty-handed as the NSE words have a deep impact on us. Thank you everyone for making this event a resounding success.
Thank you, Shaman, for beautifully capturing the essence of this conclave. Now, we invite you to indulge in a brief but captivating glimpse of today's event, beautifully crafted by 50mm, the photography club, in collaboration with the media and PR cell of our institute.
I want to express my gratitude to 50mm Club and MPRC for skillfully crafting and capturing the precious moment of this conclave. Your contribution is truly appreciated. Distinguished panelists, esteemed keynote speaker, respected faculty members and fellow students, on behalf of the entire organizing team, I extend our heartfelt gratitude to all of you for contributing to the resounding success of this conclave. To our esteemed panelists and keynote speakers, we sincerely appreciate your valuable insight and expertise, which have enriched our understanding. Our heartfelt thanks to Mr. Mutha Basha for skillfully steering the discussion, and to our dedicated faculty members whose unwavering support and mentorship has been invaluable. Our dedicated IT team deserves special acknowledgement for ensuring the seamless execution of the event. A round of applause goes out to the media and public relations cell of IIM Amritsar, Ultra Z, the Operation Club, Strategist, the Strategy and Consulting Club, the 50M, and support team for their integral role of this success.
for your presence at our next event. Now, I would like to invite the panelists, faculty members, and the